Alrighty, welcome back to the Only Cappy podcast. My name is Jordan, aka Only Cappy. Usually, we like to start these off with a quote or something in general that just gets the mood going. Right now though, I'm not gonna do that, and there's a specific reason for that. So this episode is gonna be a little different. It's gonna be a little more dark, and I'm gonna put a full disclaimer at the beginning. If you struggle with mental health or mental health issues or suicidal thoughts or anything like that, if anything like that is going to trigger you, this episode probably is not for you. I'm going to get real dark real quick. I'm going to get real deep. And I say this because I know personally how triggering it is for people. Do this right now. I'm going through something similar. I don't blame you, honestly. But I want to get into it because I did say that I was going to do topics that, meant something. I was going to bring on guests that they're going to talk about the stuff they like or stuff that they're dealing with or just stuff that they're passionate about. And in the last episode, I covered basic training, the majority of it. I was cracking up because I was telling a bunch of people who I went to basic training with about the episode, and I'm like, yeah, I did about an hour episode, and that covered maybe a good quarter of everything we've been through. So there was that. But honestly, like basic training was what it was. We pushed forward from it, got to our units, and made it out alive, which is more than I could say for a lot of people. Some people made it with us, some people didn't. Some people came later on, but you know what? Everyone has their own time and everyone has their own path where they're just like, I'll do it on my own time. As far as the quote goes, it actually popped into my head like 2 seconds ago, and it was the only one I could think of off the top of my head. It's from a Robert Frost poem. So it's two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. And that quote will forever be in my head because it's my life story. It's basically everything I've been through from, my complicated birth and then going through high school and graduating high school when I had to do both day and night school at the same time because I was a complicated kid. I didn't want to follow the path that was put in front of me. I did my own thing and yeah, I made it to the finish line, so that's good. But I don't want to travel too off topic because this one's going to be a long one as is. Probably not as long as the last one though, because I'm not one to sit here and talk about emotions for 3 hours. Honestly, I don't even know if this episode will make it uploaded, but we'll see. We'll go along with it, and as time goes on, we'll see what happens. So let me start off by saying, if you're concerned, if you're worried about me, if you're feeling some type of way, and you go to my mom, F you. No, I'm kidding. Anything I say on here, my mom's aware about already. My family's aware about. My friends are aware about it. So it's not like I'm going to be saying something they haven't already heard like 50 million times. Uh, with that being said, I just wanted to get into it because I've seen, since I've been in my unit, there has been 3 or 4 suicides in my unit alone. And it always boils down to just people not being concerned enough about the people around them, and just people keep on pushing forward and they're just like, oh yeah, that person killed themselves. Okay. So what happens here when someone kills themselves? Is there like a big ceremony? Is there like a funeral or anything like that? And my first answer to that is no. When someone kills themselves here, we usually get a text message from our sergeant checking up on us, and he's like, hey, just want to make sure you're good, just want to make sure you're alive, just want to make sure you're healthy, happy, all that stuff. And to me, that's just so whack. Like, I get standard procedure, right? I get the whole check up on your soldiers, make sure they're good, make sure they're alive and well. To me, I'm like, if I died tomorrow, I would just be another number. I would just be another check in on your soldiers text. I would just be another, oh, hey, this person killed themselves because they weren't happy. Just make sure everyone else is good. To me, that just never, in my head and in my brain, I'm like, that never sits well. Another reason I wanted to do this episode, though, aside from talking about mental health and talking about my mental state and giving you an insight as to where I'm at right now, is because a lot of people, there's this whole, theory, if you will, of, oh, all the happiest people always kill themselves and they never show it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that's definitely not the case. I've seen plenty of people talk about their mental health deteriorating and them being upset and them being angry and them trying to reach out to people and people just shrug it off, right? So that's another reason why I wanted to do it, because I'm like, I struggle with my mental health all the time. I struggle with suicide thoughts all the time. I struggle with all that stuff. And I blatantly, I am not the happiest person, and I'm like the furthest from the happiest person, and it shows all the time. I had a sergeant tell me one time, he's like, "Hey, Rivera." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you always have that pissed off look on your face?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably. I don't even realize it, but that's just me." He's like, "Yeah, I've come to notice that. Like, I thought you were very mad at me all the time." And he was just like, "I've come to realize you're not really like an angry person. That's just you." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's about right." So, that's just me. I'm not necessarily an angry person. I'm just either thinking about something or I'm just concerned about something else. I have a lot of different moods, and normally they get the side of me where it's just like very best word to describe it, stoic, just like chilling. You know what I mean? So that's just me. If you ever see me just chilling, I'm probably thinking about something. Something's probably on my mind. But when I was younger, and I don't mean too much younger, like I want to say 20, I want to say like 22 or 23 years old. I took a trip to Hawaii. And when I went to Hawaii, my thought process, this was during COVID, so 2019, so I couldn't have been much younger, but like 2019-ish, I said to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Hawaii and I'm just going to die. I'm going to kill myself there because I wanted to be somewhere, Hawaii was on the bucket list, and I wanted to be somewhere where I actually wanted to be. So I took the trip to Hawaii. I thought about killing myself, and I was just like, I met some cool people, did some cool things, jumped off a cliff, didn't land on my neck. By jumped off a cliff, I have to specify and say I jumped off a cliff into water, cliff diving. Because, if someone says, I jumped off a cliff, you think like the person's trying to kill themselves, land on their neck. But yeah, I had a good time, and that just reminded me like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is something I actually want to do. This is something I want to be participating in. And for the next couple of years, the thing that kept me out of that mindset, the thing that kept me out of that box was, okay, what's my next trip? What am I doing? What am I supposed to do? So that was something that kept me out of that box a little bit. But then, a little bit after, sorry, I got but a little bit after, life took over, and as any human would, I got my heart broken. Make it to 27 years old, right? And I don't have everything I want in life. And what I wanted in life at the time was, I wanted a family and I wanted kids to carry on my legacy. And I didn't have that at 27. I think at 27, I was a housekeeper, a bartender, stuff like that. for me, that wasn't fulfilling and it wasn't what I wanted in life. It was just something I had to do at the time. Like the traveling was cool, everything was cool, but it wasn't be all end all. It wasn't the goal I had set. So I said at 27, I wanted to kill myself if I didn't have everything I wanted. And it's hard for people to grasp that reality with a straight face and say, what do you mean you wanted to kill yourself? And like how how else do you explain that to someone that you I'm like, okay, let me break this down for you. Gun to head. Pause video game. Turn off video game. Power off. You know? Like I don't know how else to describe that, but that's the feeling I had and that's what I was going through, and it was bad for a very long time. And then I had to make some decisions to improve myself and improve my life. And in doing so, I joined the army and I'm like, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I want to be a part of. Um, but it's something I have to do in order to better myself and in order to set myself up for a better life. And I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know what to expect. But even during basic training, when I was at my lowest point, I'm just like, man, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to die. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be alive. And that was like everything for me. Like if I didn't have that minimal support system that I did when I was in basic training, if I didn't have that drive to keep pushing forward, I was like, I wouldn't have made it out alive. I had so many failures where I would just document each failure in my journey in my journal. And I still have it to this day where it was just like, I'm not going to make it out. Can't do it. Can't move forward. Can't push forward. Don't know how people do this. And then eventually, I used my motivation to, inspire my nephew who's just turned 1 year old. I said, you know what? I'm going to show my nephew, like, if I could do this and if I could get past this in my darkest time, I'm like, he could do anything. And that's still true. He could do anything. Anyone could do anything, really. I think about some of my darkest moments that I got out of, and I'm just like, man, like, it sucks because I want to keep pushing forward. And then there's days where I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, man. But lately, like, it's been bad. Like, since I got here and since I got in my unit, it was struggle after struggle, failure after failure. And, like, my mental health has just completely deteriorated. And I'm talking about this on a podcast. I'm talking about this openly and honestly because, like, think about it. People see mental health as a weakness. You're not mentally healthy. You can't be stable. You can't do this. You can't do that. And all of a sudden, it's like they see you as someone who's weak, as opposed to, hey, you're getting the help you need. You're talking about this openly. You're talking about this on an open forum. You're strong. You're doing what you got to do. And I've talked to people about my mental health, and I've talked to some of my friends here about my mental health, and their mental health is just as bad as mine. And I'm never gonna be like that guy that's like, oh, well, my mental health is like this, and your story doesn't compare to my story. And you know what? Sometimes you're right. Sometimes people have a different background. Sometimes people have a difficult story and it's more difficult than yours. And at the same time, it's like, bro, we may be swimming in two different boats, but we're going through the same thing from a mental health perspective. I had a friend who was like, I want to kill myself. I don't want to be here, but I'm seeking the help that I need to get. I'm feeling really depressed, but I'm going to counseling, and I made all of my higher ups aware of everything that's going on. And you know what? Kudos to that. Because some people, like myself, they don't have the strength to admit, like, hey, this is an issue. I need to talk to someone about it. Me personally, I'm like, I'll never be that guy that goes and talks to my higher ups and is like, hey, you know what? I'm feeling like killing myself, or I'm feeling like not good, or I'm having a bad mood. Because people like that, they don't care, man. And some people do. Don't get me wrong, some people do. But in this world, it's like, to me personally, I'm like, you're just another number. You're just another text where it's like, hey, look out for your people, look out for your soldiers. They're going through a tough time. Um, so it sucks in that perspective. And then for me also, I had a bad experience one time where I did go to help and I did go to a psychologist, right? And he was a little Indian dude. And I'll never forget this because I was like 15 or 16 years old. And my mom was sitting in the chair right next to me when he was giving me my diagnosis. And he's like, "You are broken. You are broken, but we will fix you. You are broken. This is what's happening to you. And we will fix you." And at the time, 16, 17-year-old me, I was like, you know what, mother effer? You're broken. I don't need to be fixed. You're broken. So I did at the time refuse like any type of like medication or anything like that because I didn't want to be that guy that has to rely on antidepressants and it's going to change who I am. And I'm not saying antidepressants for anyone is a bad thing. That's a great thing. You're actively pursuing the help that you need. You're actively going and getting the help that you need. That's great. For me, my mindset with it was it's going to change who I am. It's going to change the person I am. It's going to change the way I think. It's going to change the way I act. And I'm like, I'm proud of who I am, honestly. Like all mental health issues aside, all anxieties aside, I don't want to change the way I think. I don't want to change the way I act. And I'm thinking about that now because I shot out a text about 40 minutes ago, right? Right before I recorded this, to someone whose birthday is today, the August 11th. And, I just said, happy birthday, man. I know you don't want people knowing about your birthday, but turning 20 years old is an important thing. It's a good milestone. And, you may not think that people care about your birthday, but I just wanted to let you know, there are people here who actually give a shit about your birthday. And that one was hard for me to send out because it was to a person who doesn't like me. It's to someone who me and him don't get along on a friendship level. And someone who's constantly talked about me behind my back consistently. And it's always getting back to me like, hey, this person's saying X, Y, and Z about you. And I always laugh because I'm like, anything that I say behind someone's back, I would gladly say to their face. And anytime I've confronted this person about it, they're like, no, I never said that, or no, that's not true. And it could be very well people instigating or like talking shit, just to talk shit, just to get a reaction. But in that same sense, I have seen this person talk bad about people who have been nothing nice to them. And I'm like, okay, so this is how it's going to be. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because like sometimes for me, I put all the BS aside and I do good things for people who would never even think twice about me. And I guess in a sense that speaks on my character and that speaks as who I am as a person. I'm always willing to go that extra mile for someone, even though they would never do it for me. I got this person a birthday card. I got this person, like a cheap cologne as a birthday present, But at the same time, it's like it doesn't matter the expense of the cologne. It matters the thought of, hey, it's your birthday. Here's a birthday card. Here's a cologne. Uh, if someone didn't get you a birthday present, at least you got that. That's always been my mindset. Like, hey, I may hate you or I may dislike you, but I don't want you feeling bad or feeling some type of way. Because at the end of the day, even though we all hate each other or even though we may not like someone, we're all running in the same race. Like, we're all on this crazy earth for a reason. And like, why are you looking down on someone who's just trying to exist? Like for me, I know sometimes people give me crap and I'm just like, dude, like my mindset is like, I don't care about you, bro. I'm literally just trying to survive. I literally wake up every day and I'm struggling with my mental health and I'm struggling with pushing forward. And then you got someone who's bugging me or someone who's annoying me and I'm just like, leave me alone, man. That's why like I'm always so quiet and I'm always to myself and I'm always in my own head because I never want to be that guy that's making someone's life more difficult when it's already difficult as is. And that's like my mindset. I know people think differently, but That's just how I am. And I think about all the times where I'm suffering with my mental health or I'm suffering with just anxiety and bad thoughts and all that stuff. And it's typically, ironically enough, it's typically always on Sunday night. I'll lay down in bed probably around like 10 or 11, right? And I'll just sit there for a good 2, 3 hours, like just thinking about everything. Everything's running through my brain. Like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. This has to be done for the week. This has to be done for the week. That has to be done for the week. And I'm thinking about everything I did that weekend and how some stuff failed and how some stuff went great and how what's my next step forward? Is this next step forward with this person? Is this next step forward with that person? Is it by myself? It's hard, man. And if you could hear like the ramblings in my voice when I'm thinking, it's literally doing like a cha 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 cha. And people ask me all the time, they're like, "Oh, why do you go to the bars? Do you go to the bars because of pretty women? Do you go to the bars to pick up chicks? Do you go to the bars just to drink?" And I'm like, dude, honestly, I go to the bars so I'm not alone. I go to the bars to clear my head because if there's loud music or if there's a lot of stuff going on, my brain can't focus on, hey, guess what? This went wrong at this time, or this went wrong at that time, or this happened at this time, so focus on this. Because if I'm in my room and I'm by myself, all I'm thinking about is everything that went wrong. Everything that went wrong, everything bad that happened. That's all I'm thinking about. And I know people are like, yo, why don't you try going to the gym? Why don't you try doing an activity? Why don't you try doing X, Y, and Z? I do go to the gym all the time. I do plenty of activities Monday through Friday when we're working our butts off like slaves. And even then, like, I could go bowling or I could do golf or I could hang out with friends or I could go to the bar and drink with friends. It's never enough because it's always that moment of, okay, I'm happy for a second. And then you get out of it and you're just like, well, I'm sad again. So it's just a constant struggle back and forth with my brain. And again, I'm sharing this not for sympathy or anything like that. I could care less about all that. I'm sharing this because my mental health has gotten to the point where I'm just bad thoughts every single day of the week. And if anything bad does happen to me, I would want it to at least be documented as to like, oh, hey, on this day he was feeling this, or this day he was feeling that, or this is why this happened. But it's never gonna be like if I die tomorrow, right? It's never gonna be one instance of, oh, this person broke his heart, so he decided to kill himself. It's never gonna be that. It's an abundance of things wrapped into one. It's like one big giant present. And one thing I've been doing lately, I've just been trying to live in the present and trying to fix that mindset of, oh, you're not good enough. You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. I'm just trying to live, man. As crazy as it sounds, I'm just trying to move forward. And I always think to myself, I'm like, man, if the day came where I went to, kill myself, or I went to go harm myself, or anything like that, and I failed, I'm like, I would feel like such an idiot, bro. Because it's like, how do you fail at life and then fail at killing yourself too? I always used to see stuff where someone was like on Twitter and they'd be like, oh, I tried to kill myself, but I failed. And I'm like, no, I don't think you could fail. I think if you're trying to kill yourself and you're not searching for help and you're not looking for anything like that, you will die. But that's just my opinion on it. I think the people who try to kill themselves and fail, quote unquote fail, they're just looking for someone to help them. They're looking for help. They're trying to seek help. They're trying to move forward and they don't even realize it. And like I said, man, if you're getting offended by any of this, my bad. But I did give you the disclaimer at the beginning. And we're at the 25-minute mark. And if you're still here, that's on you. That's on you. I wanted to get this episode done first because my roommate's out of town right now. And honestly, two things. If he heard me talking to myself and just shooting the shit, he probably think I'm crazy because he doesn't realize I'm doing a podcast. And then second, the last thing I need is him coming down to my room and being like, "Yo, man, like, you good? You gonna kill yourself tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm not gonna kill myself tomorrow." But I'm coming up on 30 years old, right? I don't have what I want right now, and I don't know if I ever will. So I'm processing a lot. There's been a lot of thoughts and a lot of depression. That's been a big thing. But it's not depression because of one individual thing. It's depression of, hey, I can't be my family. Hey, I'm missing out on, my nephew growing up. Like, that one was a big one when it hit because I was supposed to see my nephew for his first Easter. Supposed to see my nephew, go down, see him, and then go to Philadelphia and watch WrestleMania live with my friends who I've missed dearly. And that didn't happen because my first sergeant, who, mind you, when I first came in the unit, he was like, "I'm a family man. I love my family. If you ever have anything that you need to do with your family, you let me know and I will approve that vacation." That guy rejected my vacation time, and basically all of my plans went up in smoke, which, everything happens for a reason. What that reason is, I don't know. But yeah, that one hurt a lot because I see my nephew and I'm like, man, I want to see his first Easter, his first Christmas, his first Thanksgiving, his first everything, and I couldn't be there for any of that. Thankfully, I was there for his first Christmas, even though he's Jewish. Happy Hanukkah. Um, but yeah, it hurt, man. It sucks. It sucks being away from your support system. It sucks being here and not having people you could rely on. And people ask me all the time, they're like, "Hey, my bartenders will be like, "Hey, why didn't you bring, this guy, or why didn't you bring that guy here, or why didn't you bring a friend here?" And I'm just like, man, I'm like, realistically, and this sounds so shitty to say, but realistically, I'm like, in Texas, I'm like, I don't have friends right now. And I get it. People will be like, "No, but you do have friends. You have, this battle buddy, you have that battle buddy, you have this guy, that guy in your unit. Why don't you talk to this guy, that guy?" And I'm just like, no, no. I have coworkers. I have coworkers who work with me that I could take out, right? But then think about it. Think about it from my non-army perspective. You go out with a coworker, you have a good time, you get drunk, you get fucked up, whatever. And then the next day at work, you go in and it's like, "Oh, yo, you should have seen what Rivera was doing last night. He was pole dancing on the stripper pole. He was making out with everyone. He was doing this. He was doing that." And automatically, right there, that ruins your character with people, right? And that's happened to me before, where I went out one time with someone, and then the next day they were just like, "Yo, you Rivera got drunk and was doing X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. And more recently, I have been a part of that to where I would take coworkers out. But that was only because they were new in the unit and I didn't want them to feel like an outsider like I did. Because when I first came in, um, it was rough. When I first came in, not a lot of people were social with me. Not a lot of people wanted to talk to me. Not a lot of people were trying to get to know me for me because they were already satisfied with the cliques that they were in or the groups that they were in. Like, everyone was grouped up and I felt like high school all over again. And it sucked. So I made sure that when I came in and I got established, right, and new people came in, I said, I'm making sure that the new people coming in, they're not going to have that same feeling. They're not going to be left out. They're not going to be excluded from stuff. They're not going to be, the guy that's left out of something just because they're new. So when the new kids came in, I was like, "Yo, man, how's El Paso treating you? How are you? You good?" And they were like, nah, man, I've just been chilling, I've just been in my room doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, let's just go out and have a drink, you know? And I took them to go out, have a drink or two, because I didn't want them to feel left out. And again, that speaks on my character because I'm like, I'm never going to be that guy. When I was bartending in Denver, same thing. Clicked up, people didn't want to interact with me. People didn't want to talk to me because they had their own groups established. And it took one person who was just like, hey man, that's my brother. We're new here. We got to stick together, to completely just change that experience. So Denver the first time around when I went, not good. Denver when I came back, I had a bunch of friends and I had established these connections and I had made friends with a couple people who were still around. So Denver the second time around, like March to July, beautiful. The first time around was like, this is all right. But even then, like, I think my favorite part about bartending when I was a bartender was meeting people and establishing those connections. And I'm like, oh, hey, you're local? Yeah, that's cool. Let's hang out. You know, like just meeting people from around the world and establishing these connections and then, continuing to move forward. Like, you don't even think about it. You could be meeting someone at a bar and then, like, a couple weeks later, you become friends. And then, like, years later, they're your best friend. I still have people who I talk to from that experience that I never thought I'd be friends with. First impressions are weird, man. Because you look at someone, you're like, look at that a-hole. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, that guy's not too bad. That person's not that bad. But honestly, I haven't had that here too much. Like I'll know people, I'll get to know people outside of this little army bubble. And it just feels like everyone's so flaky. Like, I'm like, yo, let's chill. And people be like, yeah, let's chill. And then all of a sudden it's like, nah, plans canceled. I'm like, damn, man, like, that sucks. It sucks. So that's another thing where I'm just like, man, it's different for me. It's depressing. And it's something I'm not used to. Because I used to be able to just call up my friend and be like, hey, you want to go to Burger King? He's like, yeah. Hey, you want to go to Taco Bell? Yeah. Taking like 12 a.m. trips at night to Burger King and Taco Bell and sitting there for an hour and just talking about life. I'm like, man, if I just had one person, right, who I could just sit down and talk to for hours on end about anything, I'm like, maybe my mental health here wouldn't be so bad. Maybe I'd be a lot more happier. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And then thinking about everything that's coming up where, we're going to a place that not many people would want to go to, and we're going to be dealing with a lot of stuff that not many people would want to deal with. It's taking a toll on my head and it's taking a toll on my brain, and it hurts, man. It's rough. And I mean, I could say that until I'm blue in the face, but it's never not going to be true. I reached out to a friend the other night who, I normally wouldn't reach out to anyone other than my best friend about my mental health or anything like that. But it got to the point where I was just like, man, like, I need to talk to someone. I reached out, and this friend, ironically enough, not even ironically enough, just like, this person I wasn't expecting to be like, yo, you be good and stuff like that. I was expecting, like, yeah, just deal with it. Just deal with it. Life goes on. But this person, like, me and this person talked for maybe, I want to say like 2 hours, just about everything in general. And it gave me a realization of, you know what? Yeah, some people are here for you and you don't even realize it. And some people will bring you up when you least expect it. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, yeah, I'm glad that person's my friend. Because if I didn't have certain people in my life, I definitely wouldn't have been here as long as I am. And I think about people who passed away earlier than me than they should have. More specifically, like, I think about my cousin when he passed away when I was probably like 16 or 17. We were the same age. We had both just graduated high school. We both had difficult roads getting to the end. And then unfortunately, he passed away with heart conditions. And that was one of those moments that it hurt for me in that moment. And it still hurts to this day because I'm like, this person wanted to live a full life. This person wanted to, be something. And this person always had people around him, very popular, very energetic, very loving, very kind, very caring. And then just in the blink of an eye, it's all taken away from him. And I'm just like, man, you got me over here talking about, I don't want to live, I don't want to be here, stuff like that. And then you got him who wanted to be here. And it's like, why did this person get taken away? And why is it not me? And that's one thing I always think about. It's like, why not me? Why does this person leave and I don't? And that's just something I struggle with every day. Like I wake up and I think about what's going on in the day and I'm just, man, I don't want to be here. And then I sit there and I lay down at night and same thing. And it's like, oh, but you could do X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, yeah, I can, but there is stuff preventing that, you know? And I think the most important battle I've ever faced is the one that everyone goes through every day. It's like me versus myself. Someone could be thinking they're my worst enemy and someone could be thinking I hate their guts. And I'm just like, dude, the only person I hate is the thoughts in my head at night, is the bad thoughts and none of the good ones. But it's hard. Like when you're going through these struggles, when you're going through these mental health struggles, when you're like, I gotta pay bills, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I'm basically working just to pay someone off and then just die. And it's hard thinking about that, you know, and it's a struggle. And I think about stuff like that every day. I think about what I wanted and what I wanted to become, and then I think about what didn't happen, and I get into this mood where I'm just, the switch flips, and you turn on that depressing music, and you turn on that sad song, and you just get worse and worse and worse, and you dig yourself into a deeper hole, and it doesn't need to be like that, but then it is. And I apologize if I am resonating with anyone here because you should not be going through that. But that's another thing. I don't take my own advice. Like, I'll be sitting here, someone will talk to me about their suicidal issues or someone will talk to me about their mental health, and I'll coach them through it. I'll be like, yeah, man, like, go listen to something good, go listen to a good song. Don't think about these thoughts. Don't think about this. Don't think about that. And I'll tell them, be like, hey, have you reached out to family, friends, anyone? Have you reached out to a psychiatrist, a therapist? Maybe you could get on some pills. Maybe you could do this. Maybe you could do that. And then I'm here not even taking my own advice, which typically that's how it is for everyone, especially with relationships. We're like, oh, I'm the best relationship advice giver. And then you'll get into a relationship and you'll have a rocky relationship. And then you just won't even listen to your own advice. You'll just keep pushing forward because you're like, yeah, you know what? This person loves me. It'll change. This will change. That'll change. I'll make it change if I can. And it just never does. And I think about people telling me, they're like, have you reached out to God? Have you reached out? Have you prayed? Have you done this? Have you done that? And don't get me wrong, right? I'm not a Christian. I'm not heavily Christian, right? But anytime someone tells me, like, have you reached out to God? Have you talked to God? I'm like, I have had so many nights where I'll lay my head down. I'll be thinking about something and then I'll be like, God, what's going on? I'm like, what is going on? What are you doing to me? Why are you doing this? And that's another crappy situation because it's like, it makes me question myself. I'm like, is this bad stuff happening to me because, tripped on my own words there. I'm like, is this bad stuff happening to me because I'm a bad person? Like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm doing good. I feel like I'm doing my part to bring people up and not harm anyone and, live by my own values, but also keep pushing forward and doing what I got to do. And then it's just like trap after trap after trap where it's just like, you could pray all you want. And I have, right? I have. And then it's just like, nah, it's not gonna happen. But you know what? It didn't happen today. It's in God's plan for you in like a year. Come back in a year. And it's just like, man, like Christianity, I have no issue with it. Don't get me wrong. But there's so much with religion that's flawed. It's like, hey, bad people do bad things, but God still forgives them, and good people do good things and they'll be rewarded. And like God gives his best soldiers the hardest battles. And I'm like, I don't want to be a best soldier for you, man. I just want to live. Like, let me win the lottery tomorrow and then, like, I'll be happy. There is no reason to just keep pushing that button of, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. And I keep saying to myself, I'm like, I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. But what is the reason? I think about that Cardi B meme. I'm like, what was the reason? What was the reason? And I'm just like, damn, dude, like this is rough. And I had someone a couple weeks back, they reached out to me. They're like, hey, man, my cousin was shot, and he was shot in California, and I'm here. And instantly, like without hesitation, I'm like, dude, we got to get you out of here. Like, we got to bring you somewhere. You can't be in your barracks alone. He's like, no, I just want to stay in, sleep, and listen to my music. And automatically in my head, I knew what was coming because I've done the same thing where I'll be depressed and I'll go back to my room, I'll listen to some music, and then I'll get even more depressed. And so I told him, I said, nah, we're going out. We're going out, we're having a few drinks, we're having a good time, and that's exactly what happened. But like for him, that thought of his cousin passing away, he's never going to forget that. And he's never going to be able to live that down of, hey, I was here and my cousin was here and I wasn't able to be there for him. So that's going to be another like triggering thing for him. And it sucks, man. Like I wish like with people who are going through this stuff, I wish I could take their pain away and I wish I could help them and I wish I could be there for them, and you can't, and you can't. And it makes you realize like, who's going to be there for me? And I realized, I'm like, no matter how many texts I shoot out, hey, I'm depressed, hey, I feel like killing myself, hey, I feel like dying, I'm like, no one's going to be there for me but me. Because you could have that person that texts you, you could have that person that sits down with you and talks to you about it hours and hours and hours and hours, but then there's so much that they could take because they're also going through that same pain. They're also going through that same struggle of depression, anxiety, and all that in between. And it's the funniest thing. I was talking to my friend the other day about it. He was like, you know what? If you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling some type of anxiety, he's like, go, maybe you should look into antidepressants. And I'm like, man, I don't want a drug to rely on me being me. And he hit me back with, well, why do you do your Zins? Why do you do your alcohol? Let me tell you right now, my Zins are more of a fidget than anything else. Anytime you see me with a Zin, anytime you see me with a Zin in my mouth, it is usually because I am high level anxiety in that moment. If you see me playing around with the ring on my neck, high anxiety. Like I have these fidgets where I'm like, okay, if I'm going through this, I just play with this or I just chew on this or I just suck on this. No pun intended. And I just have that, my anxiety triggers. Like my anxiety fidgets, basically. But I'll never be the person, I try not to be the person that burdens anyone with anything unless it's at that point where it's just like, okay, this is really bad. Maybe I should talk to someone about this. And the best part is when people are like, yeah, you should talk to someone. I'm like, what am I doing right now? And they're like, no, talk to a professional. I'm like, I'd rather sit here and chat with someone who I trust than someone who's going to sit in a chair and be like, how does that make you feel? How is this feeling making you feel? And it sucks too, because like if people were there for each other more, we wouldn't have to pay $100 an hour to a therapist just for them to say, and how is that making you feel? It's just, it's stuff people need to be aware about. It's stuff that people need to be more, I guess the word is cognizant about, because people go through this stuff all the time, man. Especially in the army, especially with dealing with not being with your family, not being with your friends, missing out on certain moments. I missed out on my nephew's birthday. I missed out on my mom's birthday, my sister's birthday. I missed out on, my best friend's dad having health issues. Like, I couldn't be there to support my best friend and be his support system while his father was going through X, Y, and Z, and that hurt. And I feel like it's just packing on one after the other after the other. It's like issue after issue after issue, and I can't be there. And this is me basically expressing how I feel, but also trying to find some sort of solution to the issue that's in front of me. I've been going on for about almost an hour now. We're coming up on an hour, and it doesn't even feel like it. And I don't even feel like I've unpacked everything I need to unpack. But that's why I wanted to make this topic about mental health and about mental health issues, because, like, you never know what someone's going through. You never know what pain they're dealing with. You never see what's in their head. Because me personally, like, you'll never see me say half of this stuff that I'm saying right now. You'll always walk up to me and be like, hey, Jordan, you good? And I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. What about you? Because I'm not concerned about me. I know what's going on in my head. I'm more concerned about the person in front of me who might be going through some struggles. Because I know where I want to be and where I don't want to be. And I've already made peace with that. I'm like, my day is going to come where I just say, hey, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to be here, whatever. And I'm just going to move on. And I know people are like, oh, but that's selfish. And you're not thinking about this person. You're not thinking about that person. I'm like, you're right. I'm not. I'm thinking about the person in front of me that I look in the mirror every day, and I see them struggling, and I see them going through pain, and I see them going through everything that they're going through. And I think about me. And I'm like, I'm not typically a selfish person, but when it comes to that and it comes to the day where I don't want to be here, I'm like, I'm going to think about me. And that's a hard thing to say, and it's a hard thing to hear, but it's the reality of the situation. It's the reality of everything going on. I don't need people faking a connection with me. I don't need people fake reaching out to me like, hey, yo, you good, man? I'm like, nah, like, I know who's there for me. I see it all the time. I see it constantly. I'm like, I know who's there for me. I know who's going to support me. I know people who check up on me when I least expect it. And it's the same, like 5, 6 people every time. But I see the people who show the love that they do. And I acknowledge that. I acknowledge the people who love me. I acknowledge the people who have been there for me and continue to be there for me. I see you. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. What you're doing doesn't go unnoticed. And, to my friends who, I did reach out to, I love you too. And yeah, man, like, I don't know. I just feel some type of way sometimes because I'm like, man, I don't want to be that guy who has a funeral and then has people show up who I haven't talked to in 10 years. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's gone. Like, nah, bro. If you're at my funeral, you better be someone who I talked to like a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, not 10 years ago. Same thing as my wedding. If I had a wedding one day, it's not gonna be, oh, we gotta invite Uncle Robbie. We gotta invite Uncle Robbie, who's my long lost uncle for 20 years because he's family. I'm not doing that family shit. I'm really not. And I apologize, but I'm not gonna be that guy that's like, oh yeah, you're my cousin who hasn't spoken to me in like 20 years. Nah, I'm good, bro. I want to be surrounded by people who have actually been there with me through everything. I want to be there with people who aren't like, hey, catch me up on the past 10 years of your life. I don't want to have like an Aunt Linda, for example. And that's a bad example. I don't want to have an aunt. I'm trying to think of a name. I don't want to have an aunt. I was about to say Teresa. I'm like, I do have an aunt Teresa I love very, 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 very much. But you get the point. I don't want someone who I haven't spoken to in like 30 years to just randomly show up at my wedding and be like, yeah, here's your wedding gift. Yeah, congratulations to you and what's her face. I don't want any of that, man. And I'm like, going forward, I'm like, I want people who are going to be in my life that want to see me succeed, want to see me successful, want to see me be a better version of myself. And I get it. That's probably hypocritical because I be letting people back into my life who shouldn't be in my life. But at that same time, I'm always someone who's going to give people a chance to prove themselves. I'm always going to be that person that's like, hey, you know what? We have history. Let's continue moving forward and we'll see where it goes. And I'm not blind. I'm like, if I see something I don't like, I'll cut you off in a heartbeat. I will not even blink. I don't care if it's blood. I don't care if it's a friend. None of that. If I see something I don't like, I'm like, you're out. But if I'm continuing to benefit from the relationship that we have, if I'm continuing to grow because you're someone who's trying to grow me, I'm like, welcome to the show. That's another important thing. Like, I don't want anyone who's, and the best way I could describe it, I don't want to be a plant and someone's watering me or not watering me the way I need to be, because plants grow when they're watered. I don't want someone who's just not going to water my plant. There's a lot of unintentional innuendos, by the way. But I don't want to be someone who's going to be watered by someone who's toxic, or I don't want to be someone who's going to be overwatered by someone who sees my energy and they're like, I like this energy. I like this a lot. And they just keep constantly leeching off of me, and they're like a parasite that just stays around and tries to benefit from my success. Which again, yes, I get it, hypocritical. I have let people back in that don't deserve it, or I have sometimes let people in who don't deserve it, and I get that. But there's logic behind it that I really can't explain to anyone. I'm constantly the guy who's like, oh, this person doesn't like me, but maybe I could get them to like me. Or like, hey, this person's not matching my energy. Maybe if I do this, they'll match it. And all I want in my life is someone who's going to match my energy and make me a better person, whether it's as a friend, whether it's as a relationship, whether it's as someone who's friends with benefits, anything like that. I'm like, I want someone who's going to bring me up, not bring me down, And I've been single my entire life because that's usually been the case of this person isn't matching my energy, or like wrong time, wrong place, or, it just didn't work out, period. I don't want to bring someone into my life that's not going to be someone I want to present to my family. I want to bring the person into my life that's going to be someone who I could bring to my family and that's going to match that energy and that's going to be that person with me. And yeah, I haven't found that yet, and I probably never will. But I'm not going to settle for just, oh, hey, this person's all right. Yeah, be my girlfriend, be my person. Yeah, we're good. I can't do that. I've seen so many failed relationships because people just settle because they don't think that they could achieve something that they want. And that's been one of my main struggles. And I'm getting to the point where I'm like, man, like, I'm 30 years old, right? Almost 30 years old. 11 days, by the way. And it's just going to be one of those situations where it's like, hey, I match your energy, you match my energy. Here's your stepson. Or, I'm old, can't have kids. Sorry, your lineage is gone. Your bloodline's gone. I can't do that, man. And that's another like stressor. It's like time's running out and I got to figure something out. But it's in the same sense of I want to figure this out, but at the same time, I don't want to bring all that baggage to someone who's clean, Like if you got baggage, there's nothing wrong with it. If you got issues, there's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, it's like I want to figure myself out and I want to figure out me before I go and try to give my energy to someone else who doesn't have energy to begin with to deal with half of the shit I go through. Because it's a lot. But that's where my head's at, man. Honestly, that's my whole thing. And I know I've been rambling for 54 minutes now. I'm constantly looking at the clock because I'm like, I know. But that's where my head is right now. I am not okay. I've said this on multiple occasions. Anyone will ask me and be like, how are you? I'm not going to tell you the truth, man. But I'm going to be transparent. And the reason I'm going to be transparent is because this is stuff that's not talked about. This isn't stuff that's discussed. This is stuff that's looked down upon. And it just needs to be brought to light as far as like, hey, man, like, not me specifically, but look out for your people. Make sure they're good. Make sure you talk to them before it's too late. Shoot that text if you need to. You haven't talked to someone in months, just make sure they're good. And that pretty much wraps up the episode, because now I don't want to be that guy that's running in circles repeating the same thing over and over again. If you made it this far, congratulations. I appreciate you. You get a gold star. Not too many people will make it this far. They'll probably stop at like the 5-minute mark. They'll be like, okay, he's crazy. Time to go. But if you have made it this far and if you have enjoyed the podcast, I appreciate it. Next episode will be probably someone more sane than myself, honestly. We'll talk about different topics. We'll talk about something that interests them or something they're passionate about. Because even though like this isn't a podcast to gain fame or gain money or anything like that. This is just a podcast to pass the time. So, hopefully it works out, and hopefully we could consistently keep up with these episodes before I go and I do my thing in November. And the reason I'm not going into specifics about that is because legally I don't think I am able to. And it's just a weird line of, oh, why are you talking about this on a podcast? You shouldn't have given this information out. So yeah, I won't talk about any of that. But what I will say is I appreciate all of you. And I appreciate you making this far. And yeah, thank you for listening.